Hey everybody, welcome to Confusianity Podcast episode number 10. This is actually the final episode of season 1, and I'm really happy to have my friend JR with me here today. We go way back, and especially when it comes to Christianity issues and whatnot. I met John back when I lived in New York in my mid-20s when I started attending Redeemer Presbyterian Church. He and I, at some point, landed in the same small group Bible study, and that's where we got to know each other better and, attended church together as well. And, we were both two really devout, solid Christian men doing, the right thing according to Christian dogma and all that. And, so I guess it was about 2007 when he and I both kind of independently started leaning away from Christianity, and we both ended up walking away. So even though we did so independently, we kind of met up and talked here and there throughout the process. And I learned some things from him. He probably learned nothing from me because mine was mostly personal experience as to why I was leaving, and his was, I think, largely theological. So as a brief intro, let me actually introduce him now. So JR, why don't you expound on sort of what I've already outlined there? Am I off in any way, or how would you describe your departure from Christianity?
Right. Well, I actually did learn things from you. Things that
nice.
I never would think of, So it was also good to add what you had to what I was going through and learning. But we met at Redeemer Bible Study. We were in the same Bible study.
Yep.
And then I think at a certain point, I started to help to lead the Bible study with a mutual friend. And I've talked about this story before, but there were some people in our Bible study who were having sex before marriage. And so that kind of set off a red flag for me, because that was one of the things that I thought I knew anyway. Was very black and white, that you don't have sex before marriage, and I was trying to live this life. And so basically I wanted to prove to this person specifically that from the Bible that sex before marriage is a sin, right? So this is what my mentality was back then. This is probably going back to 2006, 2007. The funny thing was...
You sound like a pretty good Christian by the book, I mean.
Well, I was. Well, I'll tell the story of how I became a Christian, but let's tell the story of how I left.
Sure.
Or it was a process. It wasn't like a one thing, but this is the beginning of the process. Right. And the beginning of the process was as I tried to look and research, and we have the internet now, so I have more resources to search. How can anybody who calls themselves a Christian believe that sex before marriage is not a sin? So that's what I did. I went and looked and researched, and to my surprise, the Bible.
You were trying to find the ammunition you needed in order to sort of put the Christian and the Bible study in their place, and say, okay,
right. To basically see, this is historically why we believe it. This is why it says it in the Bible. This is why it's a good practice, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
But to my surprise, the more I looked, the more I saw that belief or that teaching wasn't in the Bible. And the more that I looked, I saw that a lot of stuff that the Bible actually said on sexuality was totally the opposite of what the church was teaching. And the practice of the church was totally opposite of what modern day Christianity teaches. And so that kind of sent me into a rabbit hole. To make a long story short.
So are there some specific examples? I know there's probably a lot of different things, and it was a while ago, but is there anything in particular you remember that was very specifically would be kind of eye-opening for people who are still Christian?
It's funny.
What was it that you discovered that?
Well, it's funny. It just, if I ask a Christian, let's say, when I started to have these alarm bells, oh my God, is this really not true? I would go to people who I respected, and I would talk this over with them, because I was trying to make sure that I wasn't going crazy, that somehow I was overlooking something. But you'd be surprised how many Christians I ask, where in the Bible does it say there is no sex before marriage? And
off the top of my head, I can think of the marriage bed should be kept pure.
Right, but that doesn't say, that really is not saying sex before marriage is a sin. That verse that you mentioned, the marriage bed should be kept undefiled, is in
which
Hebrews.
Is Old Testament.
It's
yeah.
No.
Well, it's in Hebrews.
Oh yeah. Hebrews chapter
Really?
12. So
okay.
I think it's Hebrews chapter 12, Hebrews chapter 13. He might be quoting the Old Testament. But
right, yeah.
in Hebrews chapter 13, the writer of Hebrews says, the marriage bed should be kept undefiled.
Mm-hmm.
2 chapters before that is Hebrews chapter 11, which is the hall of fame of faith. He talks about faith and all these saints that had faith. And all of
Abraham
them
had faith.
Abraham, Moses, all of these people had multiple wives. And yet 2 chapters later, he says the marriage bed is undefiled. So one man, one wife is not what he's talking about. David was one of those heroes of faith. And David could sleep with a concubine. He could sleep with a wife. And it was not considered adultery. And that's another thing. Adultery had nothing to do with sex. It was about breaking the marriage bond. So and David knew thou shalt not commit adultery. David knew all of that.
Wait, I thought when you said adultery, it was about, you said what? Breaking
So adultery is about breaking the marriage bond, or the covenant, they call it. So for instance, David had all these wives, he had all these concubines, but one day he sees this Bathsheba, this beautiful woman Bathsheba, bathing, and he has to have her. He calls her, has sex with her, but the problem was that she was married to somebody else, right? And
is that Uriah?
Uriah, yeah, exactly. Oh, very good, very good. Uriah.
Yeah, I still remember some shit.
Oh my God, these things are still in our brains. So long story short, he basically has him killed and then marries her.
Right.
And then God through Nathan, comes to him and he says something very interesting. He says, I gave you the kingdom and I gave you your wives. And if that hadn't been enough, I would have given you more. So here you have an example of God saying, this is not progressive revelation. This is direct revelation from God saying, I gave you those wives as a blessing. So the question I was asked to Christians is, can God give something sinful as a blessing? And the Bible gymnastics that they go, or the gymnastics in their logic, is off the charts, and they can't come up with a response to that. Yeah. Because what they believe, they think they know, is not what the Bible actually says. And there's many examples. I mean, that's just like 1 or 2 examples that I can go into. But I mean, we can get into like a quicksand, a rabbit hole with that.
Yeah. No, I always find it hilarious nowadays. I even felt a little bit of this back when I was a Christian, but especially since leaving the church, about how when people refer to the biblical view of marriage, and how we need to get back to, we have all these divorces and there's gay marriage and we need to get back to the biblical roots of marriage. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, okay, so we need to get back to polygamy and concubines.
And then, marriage at like 10 or 12 and arranged marriages. That's a biblical marriage.
Yeah, the age, right? Yeah, like 11-year-olds, as soon as you hit puberty, you get married off to an old man,
Exactly. But there's actually
biblical view of marriage.
Yeah, and there's a great YouTube video. I think I forgot who did that.
Oh, yeah. What's her name? The best Christian in America, that lady.
America's best Christian.
Yeah. That's a great video. And it's all truthful. And she has Bible verses right on the bottom.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I remember seeing that when I was coming out of religion, and I was like, holy shit, this is awesome. Like, she's spot on scripturally.
David's son, King Solomon, had 700 wives, and because God loves to round up, 300 concubines.
But the funny part is, so I tried to keep Christianity in my life for the longest time. So now I became kind of a liberal Christian, what I would call the liberal Christian. So I could have sex, but I still believed that Jesus was God and all this. It was...
Wait. So this happened after you discovered those things where you were trying to put down the fellow Christian who was sinning.
Right. I basically discovered that the person who was doing it was correct. and I was wrong.
Right.
And
Right.
also, but see, I didn't leave Christianity because of that. That was just like I still continued to be a Christian. They kicked me out of leading the Bible study. Redeemer Presbyterian did. So I had to.
I remember that. I remember that. It was
That was a big
because
drama.
was it because you were raising these views?
Because what?
Was it because you were bringing these things up? Like you were making them known about?
Well, what happened was I went to a mutual friend. You know who this mutual friend is. And I ran to this mutual friend
I know
because
what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I went to this mutual friend because I thought that this person, I respected her knowledge of the Bible. So I'm trying to check myself. Is really what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So I respected this person's knowledge of the Bible, and I was going through this and like, this is what I'm finding, and it's not the same of what we've been teaching. What do you think? So this person got freaked out. This person spoke to somebody who was the wife of a deacon at the church, and they made that person basically say who it was, and then all of a sudden there was a big drama. so I had to step down, and that was that.
Okay, we're going to come back to this later, this specific bit about how all you're wanting to do is look deeper into the scripture and bring the truth out, right? And let's all talk about it openly, and you got in trouble for that, right?
Right. Well, I'm trying to check myself. I'm trying to make sure that I'm not going off the deep end, like what I would have thought of somebody who said that to me, you know? Like I'm trying to make sure that I was biblically correct, that I wasn't, somehow.
Okay. Well, that makes it even better in your case. That's even a
Right.
better defense of where you're coming from, because you're not coming at it like, "Hey, everybody, this is the way it is, and you all are wrong." Like you weren't aggressively
No,
going, but it
I
doesn't
just
sound
wanna
like it.
see-
It sounds like you were being genuinely kind of out of intellectual, etymological pursuit of really wanting us all to get on the same page of like, well, what is the true interpretation, or how should we be living? And
Right.
even on that level, you were shut down.
Right, because it's like a trigger, the whole thing. Like if you say something that's not orthodox, people think you're going crazy, or you're teaching false teaching, blah, blah, blah. So it becomes a thing.
So everybody listening, please make a mental note of this very idea, because we're going to come back to that later.
Right.
All right, but go on.
So basically, that was the beginning. So to make a long story short, I started. This was a couple of years after that. I was going to a liberal church. Jim Bakker's son, Jay Bakker, had a church in Brooklyn that accepted gays, and I was very liberal in my theology at that point. But I was still holding on to Jesus and Christianity. But at a certain point, I was reading some books by Bart Ehrman. The one that I specifically remember was Jesus Interrupted. And so I started to learn is actually how all these beliefs about Jesus, how they basically evolved over 300 years. And at a certain point, in the contradictions in the New Testament and the Bible, at a certain point, I don't remember when that point was, I just couldn't believe that Jesus was God. And at that point, I just couldn't call myself a Christian anymore. So
was that, I know the whole thing is a process, but was that more like a point where a switch was flipped? And was it historically based when the way you came to that conclusion?
Well, I guess it's more like you can't rely on the scriptures to really give you the truth. But also when you look at history, you see that a lot of the things that we believe today that's considered Orthodox Christianity, and there's like a siren outside, so please pardon the siren. A lot of the beliefs that we have in Christianity today, you would be considered a heretic for during the early 200 years of Christianity. And one example,
I'm sure.
One example of this is the Trinity. So if you believe that the Trinity, the three persons, one God, you would have been considered a heretic in 200 AD. And there's writings on heresies. There's a book on heresies that calls that current Orthodox belief a heresy. So you see how...
So the idea of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, that came later?
That came later. Now, there were people that did believe it in 200 AD, but that they were considered heretics. And the reason that these beliefs evolved is because you're saying that there is only one God, but then you have the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And what did that mean? So in 200 AD, the Orthodox belief was that it's one God, but he has three different modes. So he takes the mode of the Father, he takes the mode of the Son, he takes the mode of the Holy Spirit. But it's just like the same God who kind of transforms himself as needed. That was the Orthodox belief in 200 AD. So if you believe that it was three persons in one God, which is the current Orthodox belief, you would have been considered a heretic in 200 AD.
That's crazy.
The whole thing of Jesus being God was not a big deal.
I mean, but that view that you're describing in that view that you're describing in 200 AD, that sounds almost crazier to me than the view that we have now, because that liquidity idea of God, like it's just one entity taking different forms, that sounds absurd to me when you compare that with Scripture, because how could Jesus be praying to the Father if he's there's no Father up there, because the liquid is down here as Jesus, like that. That wouldn't make any sense.
Right. So it's a contradictory idea that they're trying to come to grips with, and this is why the ideas evolve over 300 years, which is longer than the United States has been alive or around. And they didn't have, videos and, printing of books. This was all over oral tradition oral tradition, and people writing things down when you do a little bit of mistakes and stuff. But these beliefs were evolving, is what I'm saying. So basically Christianity actually did die. And the religion of Jesus was taken over by the religion of Paul, and anyway, so it gets into those. There's a lot of books that you can read on this, and I'm sure people who are Christians who might be listening to your program are like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think that they're not reading the other books besides the books that they say is okay for Christians to read.
Do me a favor later on after we're done recording. Give me a list of some of the key books, and I'll provide it in the episode notes.
Sure. Mm-hmm. So basically, that to make a long story short, at a certain point, I couldn't believe that Jesus was God, and I kind of had to move on.
Yeah. And was it? I know you'd probably felt some momentum building in this regard. So when that time came for you to decide for yourself, like, this isn't for me, like, I just feel like this is a lie. And how did you feel then? Or what was that like in terms of clarity, peace, guilt, frustration that you had spent so much time believing something that was untrue? Walk me through that kind of transition out and how you're feeling and what was.
Yeah. Since it was a process, it was a gradual process, it wasn't that big of a shock at the time that I said, I can't believe that Jesus is God. But I think the feeling of what now kind of started to come in as the months went by, because now I didn't have the fellowship that the community that's one of the good things about Christianity is they have this community. Yeah. That you can go to. Yeah. And that is one of the few things that I miss about Christianity is this community. So now I was trying to see where is my community, which I still really haven't found, to be honest.
It's one of those things that I've wanted to say this explicitly. I don't know that I've said it explicitly on any of the podcast episodes yet, but just to make sure that this is said, like, I think a lot of Christians and religious people who, especially when I get in debates on social media about it and we're butting heads, and they have this view of atheists. And I think atheists, there's kind of a couple different breeds. Like, I don't mean like the angry ones and the peaceful atheists or whatever, or the ones who are more conversational, but I mean, there's that. But also there are people who are have always been outside of religion. I don't think Dawkins and Hitchens were ever Christian, right?
I don't know their history.
I don't think they were, though. I think they've always been purely atheists. And then there are the people like you and me. We did believe it for a long time, and we were really deep into Christianity, and now we're outside of it and atheists. And that whole transition process, I think when somebody like myself, when I come across with a brand like Confusianity and I'm putting content out there and memes, and I think a lot of religious and Christian people look at me like, why does this guy hate religion so much? Why does he hate God? Why is he so anti-God? Why is he's just doing this because he loves doing whatever he does, and he just likes dicking around with people's, religion, and I'm taking a shit on their religion and all that. They make it sound like atheism is something I chose because it's this wild, fun, awesome ride, and it's so great. And, yes, I have more freedom than I did when I was in church. Like I can have sex, I can drink alcohol, I could do drugs if I wanted to. I mean, I don't do drugs, but I could literally just kind of do anything I want as long as it's legal. And they think that that's what it's all about. And it's almost like by becoming an atheist, it was a selfish pursuit. And I think what a lot of them fail to realize, and this is why I want to make this point, is it was really hard to leave Christianity behind, because it's not like I wanted to. And even as an agnostic, and we'll get into how we identify nowadays, but I'm somewhere in between agnostic and atheist now, but even where I am now, there's still a part of me that, not necessarily with Christianity, because I feel like I've seen enough material where it has been thoroughly debunked, but there's still a part of me that wants to believe in God, or, like some loving Heavenly Father, or or heaven, and, and an afterlife, and a divine, and all of that. Like, there's still a part of me that wants to believe that, because Christians, what I'm saying is Christians have a good thing, like that feeling of like, oh, I know we're all going to die, but it's okay because I have eternal life of bliss with God and my loved ones. And it doesn't even matter whether it's true or not. That's a happy belief system for them to have. To walk away from that, and I had that too for most of my life. And to walk away from that is to walk away from kind of this ignorance is bliss kind of mentality. It's to walk away from your happiness, from your community, and all that. Like, I might rag on religion and my religious upbringing and all that stuff, but like you were saying, like there was a lot of good to it too. There was the camaraderie, there was the community, there was the tradition that you have, that no matter where you go, where you travel, you can always go into a church and feel comfortable. There's all of that. There's the eternal, peace of mind that you have, knowing you'll be in heaven, and there's all that. And when you leave that all behind to become an atheist, I just kind of wanted to convey that to whoever is Christian and listening, is that it's not an easy choice. That's why I go back to the Matrix. It's kind of like taking the red pill, and you go from whatever great life you had in the Matrix to, eating cream of wheat or whatever it is out of a murky bowl, and you got nothing, and life sucks, because you're out of it. But it's true. It's true. So that's really the ultimate payoff of becoming an atheist and leaving religion, is that you have discovered truths and falsehoods and whatnot. And I don't know, for me, and I think probably for a lot of atheists, is that ultimately that's what it came down to, is I didn't really have a choice. I mean, you always have a choice. Like, you can choose to believe in a lie, even if you know it's a lie. But for me personally, I couldn't do that.
I don't know that people would choose to believe in a lie. You have to kind of really believe it to really believe it. Otherwise, you, as you said.
No, I mean, like even in the last episode, my friends Ben and Diana, they mentioned they have one friend, this guy who's still in the Mormon church, and I asked them, does he still believe? And they're like, no. So he doesn't believe, but he still goes to the Mormon church, and he's still part of that community. And they explained kind of, family and how interconnected you are with the community and all. So there are examples of people who don't believe it, but they still keep going.
Yeah. So
or even like the casual Christians who only show up for Easter and Christmas. There's a lot of that in America too.
Exactly.
Like, they don't really believe it if you grilled them.
Right.
But
no, I understand that, and that's yeah. But I wouldn't call them real. When I was a Christian, I called them, they're not real Christians. They're not really true believers, but they're enjoying the benefits of the community and the music and whatever they like about it.
right.
So it was, so leaving was just like trying to find a community. I went through trying to find what's next for about a year or two after leaving Christianity. These days, I don't really think about it too much. It just...
You don't think about what too much? About Christianity in general?
Yeah. Like I used to go to this, and I think I invited you and a friend to go to this ex-Christian meetup group, right? That would have been great for me the first year or two when I left.
Yeah.
But by the time I was going, I didn't really need it. Like I didn't feel any issues by having left. You know, it was good to speak with other like-minded people, but the conversation was always about, leaving Christianity. And I actually don't even talk about these things that often. I used to be very into, talking about, what the Bible says about sex before marriage and all this. And even though it's still in my head, I don't really care about talking about it that much anymore. It's like kind of a part of my life that was back then. And it's kind of like talking about high school, which, is fun and all, but I don't really talk about it that much and think about it that much. Even my time in the Marines from a long time ago, I hardly even think about it these days. So Christianity has kind of been my rear view mirror at this point.
Yeah.
But
I feel the same way, actually. I know I'm running Confusianity in this podcast and this brand, and I talk about religion and I make religious memes and posts all the time, but I'm totally with you on that. Like I don't think about fear of hell anymore. I don't think about converting people religion is kind of behind me, and outside of Confusianity, because I'm doing like 15 other projects too. I don't know if people realize that, but Confusianity is just one thing that I do. But the majority of my interest is more in soccer and art and music and design and animation and, all these other things, politics, culture, all these other things.
Right. And this is like more to help people right now who feel like they want to come out of Christianity or who have just recently come out of Christianity. Like if I talk about it like this, it's really just to help them, to let them know that it's okay and, you're not crazy and you don't have to worry about hell because there is no hell in the Old Testament to begin with. So I always ask Christians, where is hell in the Old Testament? Nobody can come up with it. It's so funny. And so why did Jesus come? To save us from something that was never mentioned. I don't know. It's just a question.
Man, I mean, this is the thing. Like whether it's modern day culture issues in politics or the scripture and Bible and Christianity, there's something that I like about having the truth on my side that is just pleasurable in a way. Like I'll get into debates with people all the time.
You got to be careful
about anything.
You got to be careful. So this is the thing that kept me in Christianity for such a long time, is that I thought I had truth on my side. I thought I knew it all. And one of the things that right now, like if you're going to ask me where I am, I'm definitely not an atheist at all. But I am not.
Yeah, this is
I am
my
not
next
a
question.
I'm not 100% sure about anything, and that's the good thing because I always check and see, and I talk with others to see, is this still making sense or does it not make sense? For right now, and since I left Christianity, I still have this. What was your question going to be? It's like, where am I now? I guess. Is that what your question was?
Well, yeah, my question was, and I have a couple questions about this, but it's kind of like how do we identify religiously and spiritually over this time period of the past 10 years, because it's been about 10 years for both of us. So how would you describe how you have identified during that 10-year period, and then follow that up with how do you identify today?
Right. So I had a little different, when I left, a little different experience than you did, in terms of that as I left, to me, it was more of a continuation of a spiritual experience that I had while I was still in Christianity. It was just getting rid of the baggage for me. So, and getting rid of this, I know it all kind of mentality. One of the key principles in life is that you need to be teachable. And to be teachable, you need to have a willingness to learn and a willingness to accept change. And when I was a Christian, I didn't have that because I knew it all. When you think you know it all, then you kind of stop growing. You stop thinking. And
That's true.
I'm not. So what I say is I never say it like dogmatically, this is exactly the truth, ha ha ha, and everybody else is going to hell. I never say that.
Right.
But it is my opinion, as I continue to search these things out, that I feel like there's too much order in the universe and something there. But the thing is, now it's too big a mystery. It's such a big mystery that I can't tell you what exactly it is, and I don't have to. And as far as what happens after, well, I have no idea. I think life goes on, as Celine Dion says, but I don't know. And it doesn't really matter.
Her heart will
go on. Okay. My heart, I believe my heart will go on.
I believe that the heart does go on.
Okay.
But I don't know about the body. It definitely won't be there. I have no idea. But I do believe there's something continuing. And if it isn't, so what? It's, like I wasn't around 2 million years ago, and I was okay with it. So if I'm going, I'll be okay with it then. It's whatever. But the point is, how am I living here?
So you were okay with it, but the point is like you didn't even exist back then.
Right. But
in
100
years from now, you won't exist either.
Right. Or did we? I mean, did you exist when you were in your mother's womb? You did, but you don't remember.
Yeah.
But you don't remember anything of it. So
right, but
it's kind of like that.
In
the first 2 years,
I was being formed though. Like my brain, it didn't have the capacity.
But you were there.
Before I was conceived, there was no me really.
Right. Okay. So the first 2 years you were there fully, and you were still growing, but you don't have any memory of it.
Right.
So
because my brain hadn't developed yet to retain memories.
Right. But still, you were there. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I had a birthday and I didn't even know about it.
Right. So we don't know what came. So my point is, we don't know what came before. We don't know what's coming after. Maybe I wasn't around. Maybe I was. I don't know. There's a belief that predates Christianity. It comes from your tradition in India. That says that people, reincarnate, and I hate that idea. I don't believe in it, to be honest. But I'm just saying, there's these different beliefs that have been around for years, way before Christianity.
Wait. Why do you? So you hate the idea of reincarnation?
Yeah, I hate it. I don't believe it to be true. I don't want to come.
I never really believed in reincarnation either. But why do you hate it?
Because I don't want to.
Like, there's some things that I don't believe in. There's some things that I don't believe in, but I'm kind of like, oh, that's an interesting idea.
But do you want to?
But why do you hate it?
Yeah, because do you want to come and do this over and over and over again? Like, that's just like that would be like hell for me. Like having
no. But I think the point with karma and all that stuff is that you're not just repeating the same. It's not like Groundhog Day. You're not like repeating the same thing over and over again. You're either ascending or you're descending, right? So if you live a good life this life, you'll be rewarded in the next life. You'll be like a higher tier. Mm. I think that's my understanding of how reincarnation works.
The problem for me is a lot of times, like in that belief system, if you're born in poverty, it's because you did something wrong in the last life. If you're suffering now, it's because you did something. So it's like blaming the victim, and I just don't like that belief.
But you are it's not blaming the victim. It's basically like a continuity of your life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but see, I've heard people, who are fully into reincarnation. When something happens, let's say you were, or a girl is abused sexually by her father, or something really horrible. It's always because you did something wrong in the previous life, or this. I may have a misunderstanding of this karma thing, but it seems that that's what they're saying. A lot of times, is the reason that you're having suffering in this life is because of something that happened in the previous life, and that just doesn't.
That's interesting.
Sit well with me.
We both are speaking outside of our area of expertise.
Yeah, I know.
So we're just kind of winging it here.
Yeah, I know.
But my understanding was kind of more. I mean, that might be the way they really think about it. I don't know. But I was always thinking, it's more like how you enter into this world, right? So we all agree it's kind of a crapshoot, right? So whether I'm born into this world as a rich, good-looking white son of a billionaire. With everything at my disposal, and I have an awesome life, or I'm born in Africa with HIV, and I live for 6 months and I die. So that is kind of the chance of life, it's kind of like you don't even have a chance. It's not about your lifestyle or your choices or whatever. It's just like that to me, in terms of the reincarnation model, is like you're punished because of the previous life, something you did or whatever. So that was my general understanding. So it's less about what happens to you in this life. Like, for example, a girl being sexually abused or whatever. And I was thinking more like, you know what I mean? It's almost like, again, we're just winging it. This is my idea of reincarnation. But let's say the girl who was sexually abused, and that sucks for her, of course, and that she's going to have to live a really tough life because of that. But let's say that she goes on to create, let's say she's like a Clara Barton or something where she creates an organization that really helps women that were abused and all this stuff. So she achieves greatness in her life, right?
Right.
Not because of what happened to her, but in spite of it, right?
Right.
So I would think, okay, then she dies. And then maybe in the next life, she's further up on the tier, right? So in the next life, she's born as something with, less cursed or whatever, I don't know. Like, but I find it to be an interesting idea in general. I don't hate the idea as you describe.
I don't like it.
But one thing I will say though
over
is
and over and over.
Yeah, but how is that different than eternal life? Don't you like the idea of eternal life? I like the idea of eternal life because I like existing, and I want to continue to exist.
The idea of eternal life is kind of an interesting thing. And like I said, nobody knows anything about that because nobody's come back really and see what's going on. But I can tell you what I've heard. And so there's different things. I don't know exactly what it is. Like if there is such a thing, I don't know. And but I like the idea of it. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Have you ever heard Bill Burr's bit on what happens after we die?
No.
I like it a lot. I feel like it's probably the most. That's pretty much what I believe now, which is funny because it's just coming from Bill Burr. But I mean, I was already believing that anyways, and then I heard him joke about it, and I was like, oh yeah, that's a funny way of putting it. But basically, it's like, do you remember anything before you were born?
Right.
And you're like, no, and it's like, yeah, well, that's how it's going to be when you die. You're just not there anymore.
Well, that's kind of what I said before when I said you existed in the first 2 years, but you don't remember it. Mm-hmm.
But it's not just about the memory of it. It's that like you were documented. Like you could do a what do you call the scan, ultrasound, right? Where you can see the baby inside the womb. So there's visible proof that like, okay, this baby is in the womb. It's forming. Right. It's less about my memory of it, but it's like, okay, it can objectively be documented that this person exists.
Right.
But before I was conceived, I didn't exist. Like there was nothing, and I think.
But you don't know that 100%.
Like that.
But that's what I'm saying.
I don't know. I don't know anything 100%. Like nobody does. But I'm just saying we're basically throwing darts at a dartboard here as to what we think happened before we existed, what happens after we die, and I'm just trying to look at, rationally speaking and common sense and logically speaking, what's most likely. And to me, currently today, the most likely thing is I die, my body stops functioning, and my body withers and decays, and whether I'm cremated or buried, that's it. Like my mind, my body, it's all just decaying, and there's nothing there left. Right. And that's the end of the story. People will remember me, whatever I created or whatever I made, or the lasting memories I had with the people who are still alive at the time. Right. But eventually those people will die too. And I think that's the thing about having kids. Having kids is a legacy. Having kids is the most common legacy that most all humans have. So whether you work at Burger King or whether you do nothing in life of noteworthiness to society or humanity, if you have kids, generations from now, they can always trace it back to you. Like it's a good thing that, that guy was my great great grandfather, or else I wouldn't even be here. Right. Mm-hmm. So in that way, I've heard people say that that's kind of how you live forever, is through your offspring. Because it is essentially you. It's your DNA. It's your, your genetic line continuing. But for the rest of us, like you don't have kids, I don't have kids, we probably won't have kids. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the end of the line for us when we die. And for me, I don't know, I would like to achieve something great artistically. I'm starting to realize, because I don't think like most people, and I have a lot of outlandish, crazy ideas and perspectives that we're not really allowed to express, or I'll be banned from all social media if I kind of make these things into some sort of art form, which is unfortunate because I'm ending up censoring myself. And but I'm starting to reach a point where I'm like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to go on some crypto platform far away and just post in a place where people can't, where institutions can't take it down, where social media companies can't take it down. And whatever I make, that will be my legacy. Mm-hmm. So that, as I get older, as we get older, I'm sure you're a little older than I am too. So I'm sure don't you start? Right. Actually, I think you're younger than me. That's right. I forgot.
There you
go. But I think, don't you start to think about legacy and meaning of life? And
well, that's interesting.
We can theorize about what happens after we die, but what about here and now?
I don't think that you need. Yeah, see that. I don't think we need to have a legacy or anything like that. If there's, if this is it, I think you just need to enjoy the life that you have here. But I would say that so you were talking about like, if you're a baby, you can have a ultrasound, you can see something factually. But I would say that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. So there's a lot of things that we didn't know till later, like gravity. I'm talking a cellular phone, and it's going through the air, but you can't see it. And if you were to talk to somebody 100 years ago, they would think you're crazy. Even 50 years ago, that the Star Trek thing was like out of this world.
Burn you at the stake for heresy.
Well, yeah, even the Star Trek. When you see the Star Trek, Captain Kirk talking on this huge telephone thing, communicator, and we thought that'll never happen. And now we look at how big they are, how big these communicators are. To me, spirituality. So to me, so my point is, to me, spirituality is just science that hasn't been discovered yet. And so it is possible that that's it after the end. But and you said that that's to you that's most likely. To me, when I look at nature, I see cycles. I see spring, summer, fall, winter, and then it starts up again. And it could be just that it's the DNA in the children. I don't know. But I feel
when
like
when you give those examples, though, I think of the universe, though. Like I think of the universe is ongoing, evolving, expanding forever. Or
right. But there's a lot of the universe
we
that's
as
not
just
seen.
one particular being or humanity or a species.
But we're part of the universe.
For now, like I could very well see humanity not existing 100 years from now or 200 years from now.
Do you think that do you think humanity is the ultimate intelligence in the universe?
Not necessarily.
So there could be something more intelligent in the universe.
Yeah, like the way I look at it is, let's talk about aliens, right? So when you with our little, I totally agree with you on how spirituality is just kind of like where science hasn't gotten to yet. Like we have a very limited realm of understanding. Exactly. Spirituality kind of goes beyond that to the things that cannot be proven or disproven.
Right. At this point.
So at this point. So when I think about the universe and multiple galaxies, and like we don't even have a glimpse of the universe, like whatever our satellites or cameras, whatever can capture. Right. And I'm thinking, there has to be some life forms out there. There just has to be some sort of alien life. There just has to be. Like, mathematically speaking, if you have infinite miles, light years of just stars and planets and matter, I don't care if 98% of it is black nothingness, like unlivable. The fact that we are here and exist on planet Earth, if the odds are there for things to come together here and for their life to be here, I think in an infinitely wide universe, surely there must be life out there of some sort. That's how I look at it, like in terms of the unknown and what's out there. I refer to it as infinite possibilities.
Right.
Which is why I say I'm agnostic, because I'm like, I just don't know. There's way more that I don't know than what I do know, I feel like. Right. And that's why I never really go to the lengths of fully calling myself an atheist, because I feel like people define it different ways, but I feel like I define atheist literally as like, you believe there is no God. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like religion, organized.
And what does that mean? What does the term God mean, anyways?
Well, exactly. Then it's
could
like,
it could be the universe. God? Maybe it's just the universe is God. There's a whole,
or like the Force in Star Wars. It's just kind of like what makes the universe even work. It's like, yeah. So which who again, am I to say that doesn't exist?
And again, that's a belief that's goes back to the Sumerians, and goes way back 10,000, 20,000 years ago. I mean, even like acupuncture. People knew about acupuncture like 5,000 years ago. How did they know about this stuff? They didn't have telescopes. They didn't have ways to know that if you put a needle in this part of the body, it's going to affect this part. How did they know that?
Right.
Without, this is what I'm talking about. So there's a lot of stuff that's a mystery to me and unexplained. So to answer your original question about what I identify with, I guess I would have, as very New Agey, and still am. But the good thing about New Age is you don't have to define it too well. So it's hard for me to define it. But that's the best way I can define it, as being kind of New Agey. Think that there's some sort of source energy out there that we can tap in, like the Force. And whether it's God or if it's not, or if this is the only life we have, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Is how am I feeling today? How am I making my life into my own consciousness better? Is kind of the way that I live life. And sometimes that's saying no to people. Recently, I've had to do that a lot because I've had sick family members and people wanting for me to give up everything that I have to take care of them. And I can't do that. And I know they wouldn't want me to do that too. It's just other family members who feel... so I came out of Christianity, and all of a sudden my older brother went into Christianity. So it's so stupid.
Wait, he went into it shortly after you left?
Around the time I was leaving, he went into it. Yeah, my older brother, one of my older brothers. My younger brother, I led to the Lord kind of, and he's like he works with InterVarsity in Chicago. He used to be at InterVarsity in Harvard, and they moved to Chicago. But so because he feels that,
and he's still Christian.
He's still Christian. But my older brother feels now that life, you can't get rid of life and all that. So to me, I feel like if life is not worth living, if you can't wipe yourself, just let me go. If I can't wipe myself, just let me go.
Right.
Because what kind of
I agree. Like right now, it's weird though, because when we're younger and we're still alive and healthy, it's easy for us to say things, but I don't know. I really don't know how terrified I would be. Like I had this aunt and she died of cancer a couple of years ago. And, there hasn't been a lot of death in my family, like up close with people who I know. Mm-hmm. But it was, and I've seen so many movies, of course, and TV and shows and media where people die, but it was really weird for me to see in a couple moments because she genuinely, I wasn't even in the room with her. I was in a different room and I heard my parents talking with her. And she was just almost hysterical. Like she just seemed terrified of death. And she's Christian. Mm-hmm. And it freaked me out because just hearing it in her voice, like just,
Yeah.
you know, she knows she's at the end and she's trying to deny that and prolong her life here and do whatever she can because she's so terrified of death.
Right.
And it was really kind of haunting for me. It still kind of haunts me to this day, like that feeling of like, wow, this is the end. And it's scary and it's terrifying. And I could hear the terror in her voice.
Wow.
And it was the kind of thing where you just experience it. Like I just heard it and I was like, wow. I can't explain it. It was so palpable.
Yeah. No.
And the things that I say now about death and euthanasia and all this stuff, like, yeah, I totally agree with you. Like if I'm hooked up to a machine and I can't draw and I can't watch movies and I can't talk and I can't listen to music and I can't do anything that I enjoy. Yeah.
Can't move your hands.
It's easy for me to say right now, yeah, go ahead and unplug me. I'm ready to die. But I don't know when I'm 80 years old and that time comes, or 70 years old, and I don't know if I'm going to be that terrified of death like how my aunt was. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
well, having seen, people in that condition, I don't want to be here because you literally, it's basically torture and suffering for however long you're here. It's you get bed sores, you get a red bottom because nobody cleans you at the right time. You get diarrhea, you get constipated, you get pain, and God forbid you have to get a what do you call this? Where they put a tube up your penis.
let's. All right, so moving along.
No, but I'm serious. This is what do they call that?
Catheter.
Catheter. God forbid they have to put a catheter in. Right. It's the word, and then you get like all these because of the catheter. You get all these urine infections, something infections. You get infections, and then they give you antibiotics, and then you're getting diarrhea. You cannot wipe yourself. You can't move.
Yeah, I know.
It is like it is a fate to me worse than that.
I agree.
But I don't have that fear because I do believe the heart goes on.
Yeah.
So I actually don't believe this is the end. So I wouldn't really have that fear. I never had that fear.
That's great. I mean, that's great. Honestly, I am comforted to hear people say things like what you're saying about about life continuing on, and even you as a non-Christian saying that, and as a non-religious person saying that. Like that actually gives me a lot of comfort to hear that because, of course, deep down, I want to believe. Like I want to believe that there is something more. That my story will go on somehow.
You just don't believe it.
I just feel like it's wishful thinking.
Right.
But that's one thing that I feel like that kept me in Christianity, and I think keeps a lot of people in Christianity for so long, is that it's like, do you want that happy ending? And Christianity gives you that happy ending.
Right.
And if you leave, like that's the thing earlier I was saying about, entering into atheism is not a cakewalk. It doesn't give you a happy ending. And that's why I felt uncomfortable, especially when I was first coming out of religion. Less so now, because I've kind of just accepted, like, okay, maybe I die and that's it. But that also spurs me on, like, okay, I might have 30 or 40 years left. I want to really live the hell out of this next 30, 40 years. Like, I want to do everything I want to do, live passionately, just go on fifth gear and just like take the, put the pedal, just go and live, do all the things I want to do. So it's given me a revitalized passion for life.
That's great.
But, still at the end of the day, I'm just going to die and that's it. Like currently that's what I think. I don't want that to be true, but that's one of the things, how we were talking earlier about being honest with our beliefs and humble and not believing that we're right. I feel like we're biased if we, and I just mean you and I just mean people, like people are biased if we believe something because it benefits us, or we believe something because it makes us feel good. You know what I'm saying? I feel like something is more likely to be true if I don't want it to be true, but it's like it's a harsh reality that I have to face.
Right, but that goes back to Tim Keller's argument, which is a good argument that said, well, you can have bias not to believe in God because you don't want something to control you or to be over you.
No, but that's not what I'm getting at. It's the opposite of that. Like, I want there to be a God.
Right.
But I'm afraid that the only reason I want there to be a God is because I want a happy ending.
Right. But see, the thing is, I think we're going over long with this topic, but because this is like its own, I think, podcast. But
Yeah.
like when I see order to nature, I see everything.
Well, there's
having a
both.
purpose.
There is order, but there is also chaos, though.
But even
When
the
you look at
chaos has a
universe,
purpose.
Most of it is.
Say that again. When you look at the universe,
I don't know. When you look at the universe, there's so much chaos. Like most planets, everything that we can see, it's not livable. Like if you were to put a human being out in space.
But you're talking about Philadelphia. I'm talking about just like.
No, I'm talking about the.
I'm saying is look,
the universe.
Even the parts that are
Richard Carrier.
not livable,
Have you heard? You met Richard Carrier recently.
Wait. My point is even the parts that are not livable, it's there for a reason, and those planets are there for a reason. And even like the Earth
what
and the
reason
sun.
though? Like
Look at
Richard Carrier talked about that in that video. That was really convincing to me. If you look at the design of the universe, most of it is just black nothingness and unlivable death.
Right, but
Like
it's
night.
but that gives this.
What's the
planet
purpose in
Earth-
that?
Because that gives this planet Earth a livable environment. And the sun is unlivable. You go to the sun, you're not going to live. But it gives us heat and it gives our plants a reason to grow and gives us vitamin D. I mean, this is like, there's a reason for all these things. And that's not just an accident. So that to me, I don't see that as being an accident. So to me, it's logical to assume that there's something, it's more logical for me to assume that there's something beyond than that it's absolutely nothing. Because if it was nothing, then we wouldn't even have a survival instinct. We wouldn't have anything of these things. If there was nothing, I don't think we would even be here. So that's kind of the way that I look at it. I see logically, not because of bias, but logically, when I see the universe, I see too much pattern. And you're a designer. You know that when you design something, there's a purpose for the design. You know, you hate bad design. I can look at an iPhone, and I can say, look, that iPhone has no creator. Who in their right mind would design an iPhone without a headphone jack? There couldn't be anybody. But but somebody did. Okay, maybe we don't like it that it doesn't have a headphone
asshole
jack.
decided to remove the headphone jack.
Okay, so maybe just because I don't like that there's no headphone jack in the iPhone, somebody thought it was a good idea. But you can't say the iPhone is just there. It's always been there, and nobody made it, and it has no purpose. It has a purpose, So I just see a lot of stuff in the universe that has more purpose than not, and even the stuff that seems like it doesn't have purpose. When we found out it has a purpose, even roaches.
Yeah, well, okay, let me just wrap this topic up with this. Is I'll say
This is like a
side,
separate podcast.
I'll just conclude it with this. I'll say on the flip side, I look at everything as just survival instinct. So kind of Darwinism, like every organism, it's all just like there's no meaning, there's no purpose, there's no soul, and every organism is just trying to survive, like a virus.
But why is that survival instinct there?
There's no why, there's no purpose. These are thoughts that I'm wrapping my head around lately.
There is a purpose for survival instinct. There is absolutely a purpose.
I'm thinking about it as that's just every individual organism wanting to survive.
Why is it there? If it was nothing,
that's what I'm saying. There's no reason why.
But see because life,
other than the instinct to survive, there's nothing. There's no bringing it back to human life and how I'm feeling now. It's like, why do I do anything that I do?
Right, but
this is the point. Bring it back. Wait. Bring it back to this. So, why am I? Okay, so I don't believe in heaven. I don't believe in afterlife. I'm just saying. Let's say I don't. There's nothing else, right? Why am I even doing anything for the rest of my life, right? If it doesn't really matter, right? The point is, I'm here. I'm here, and I enjoy certain things, and I hate other things. So if I have freedom, I'm just going to fill my life with as many things that I enjoy and try to minimize all the garbage that I hate.
Right.
And I'm going to do that for another 30 years, 40 years, and then I won't be here anymore, and that's the end. Now, if that's the truth, there's no meaning to that. There's no purpose to that. All it is just me surviving, but like thriving, like me blessed with this little life. And I just kind of want to make the most of it in terms of what I enjoy. But at the same time, it's not just like selfish, rip other people off, because I would like to see everybody enjoy and thrive. Mm-hmm. But you see what I'm saying? Like,
this is
meaning or purpose in that. It's just survival. So, like, I'm here, so survive. Right. Do what you're going to do.
So what I would say is, if there is no God, there's no meaning or purpose. There, in my opinion, logically, there wouldn't be any survival instincts or anything there for you to enjoy.
How can you say that though? Why not?
Because that has a purpose. You have a survival instinct for a reason.
Why does there have to be a reason? There might not be a reason.
But that's like saying that the iPhone has no reason because it has no headphone jack. I mean, it's there. It's there for you have a survival. You're looking at something that is actually there. And it does have a purpose. There has to be a reason. So in my opinion, it's more logical to assume that was put there than that it just automatically by accident just got there. And even if you say it's through evolution, that's still a mechanism that is putting something for a purpose to promote life. Why does life need a survival instinct?
So are you ultimately of the mindset of creationism then? You think there's a divine creator?
I don't know. But I'm saying is that what I see in the universe leads me to believe that there's something bigger there and that there is a purpose. Because I'm not seeing just everything. I think everything would be dead. Then there wouldn't be anybody here. I think that the fact that even we're talking about this.
And like I said earlier, on
an iPhone, you're in Philadelphia, I'm in New York City, and saying, well, that's just random. It didn't happen. There was no purpose for it. But there is. And that's what I believe. Again, I could be wrong, but it just seems logically, if you just follow logically, not by bias, it makes more logic to say that the survival instinct, the things that we see even in the universe, even as I look through New York City and I see all these beautiful buildings up, it's like saying those buildings just got there and there was nothing behind it. I see clouds, I see trees, and the cycles of life. Even like
I hear what you're saying.
I hear what you're saying. New York City all have a purpose in this ecosystem, and it just didn't get there by accident. And now you can believe it got there by accident. It's just an accident. But I think that it takes more faith to believe that than it takes faith to believe that there's something behind the design.
I hear what you're saying, and honestly, I hope I'm wrong on this, and I hope you're right.
I hope I'm right too, because
I would prefer your story to mine, because I don't like my current idea that I just die and that's it, and that's it.
Right, but it doesn't even what I said doesn't mean that there is something after life. It could be that this is it. That doesn't one that has nothing to do with the other. I'm just saying I just see more of a design to the universe than I think that you see.
All right. Well, we'll come back
table
to
this for another.
Yeah, maybe a part 2 some other time. So yeah, moving on. That was kind of the first part of this 2-part question. So the first part was, how have you identified spiritually in the past 10 years and then today, which you've kind of addressed.
Right.
And now moving on from that, I wanted to ask, how have you identified politically this past 10 years and then today? And please give us some context in terms of where you were when you were a Christian. Like, what's been your whole arc?
So, when I was early Christian, I first became a Christian when I was 12 years old. And again, I had this spiritual experience that was like a real thing. The Holy Spirit came upon me. There was like this whole great amazing experience for a week or two. And then from that, it had me reading the Bible. And then the worst thing is I started to listen to Christian radio and pastors. A lot of these pastors are obviously very Republican, left-leaning. So that's kind of what I started out as, and I registered as a Republican.
Wait. Republican, but left-leaning?
Oh, excuse me, right-leaning. Sorry, right-leaning.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no. That was later.
Okay.
So, because all the Christians seemed to be Republicans, I kind of became a Republican. But I really wasn't too much into politics until I, had joined the Marines. And after 3 years of being in the Marines, I really started to have issues with the idea of killing. And
which seems like more of a right idea.
Well,
I mean, like a right wing.
It just seems so crazy.
Right-leaning.
And I don't know if that's right leaning. I think that's more left leaning, actually, to have a problem with killing.
No. I mean, the reason why you had, I meant it the same way. Like the right seems to be more pro-war, right?
Yes,
then.
exactly.
So pro-military, pro-war, and that's when.
At least that's what it's saying. Like, yeah. Yes.
Right.
And there was this one time when we're in Camp Lejeune, and we're being taught nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare. And the things they were teaching on there was so crazy that I said, no way I ever do any of this stuff. And they're teaching you how to go through a minefield, which is like you take a stick, put it at a 45-degree angle, put it into the dirt. And if you're not dead, then you continue another foot. Put the stick into the ground until you hit something and it blows you up. That's how you go through a minefield. And I'm like, what the F?
That sounds like the Russian Stalin training for troops.
Oh no, that was U.S. It's in the handbook, and in the U.S. Marine Corps combat handbook, there's a thing that says what to do if a nuclear bomb goes off. So what do? You drop to the ground, wait till the whatever nuclear marshmallow comes out, and then once that's gone, you get up and continue the mission. So, and I'm like, as I'm reading this, all of a sudden in my brain, this is such BS. And I really started to say, screw this, and I started to have a problem with authority at that point. And then when I saw, and then I saw these Gulf Wars that were just for oil, and I didn't see, the Bush's sons going to war. Mm-hmm. I really, really, really resented that. And I really became a leftist, at that point. So in 2008, I voted for Obama. I gave Obama $800.
Thank you. God bless you.
Because he was saying that he was against war. He was against the Iraq war. He was against illegal surveillance and all this stuff. Exactly. And so as he goes into Libya and basically, and you have to understand this Gaddafi guy gave up his nuclear weapons to appease the U.S. And for his reward, Obama, Mr. Peace, Nobel Peace Prize, goes into Libya for no reason, basically assassinates the guy. So now in Libya, you have actual human slavery markets. And but the problem I had then was that the left anti-war movement was nowhere to be seen at all.
Yeah,
it's like they went to sleep because it was Obama.
Right.
So anyway, so at this point, to make a long story short, it seems I had left the cult of Christianity, but it looks like another cult has come to become the new Puritans and book burners, and that's this social justice warrior left that says that if you don't like a Star Wars movie, then you're a misogynist. Mm-hmm. If you don't like that they have a woman for Thor now, you're a misogynist. Or if you don't like the black James Bond woman now, then you black James Bond who's a woman that's going to kill toxic masculinity, then you are a racist and a misogynist and obviously a toxic male.
Yeah.
So and then if you say anything, you're immediately you're a sinner.
Yeah.
And we're going to destroy you. And we're going to stop you, whatever you say, because you are evil. And you are a Nazi, or you or whatever.
Everyone I hate is a literal Nazi, literal Nazi, literal Nazi.
There's this teaching in Christianity that says that as soon as you're born, you automatically deserve hell.
Yeah, you're born a sinner.
You're born a
hell,
sinner. Yeah. Original sin. So now the church of the culture says that if you're born white, you're automatically a racist.
Yeah. Wow. That's a good way of,
It's like it's a new original sin, but it's a different original sin. And it's because your father Adam sinned, so now you're a sinner just by default because you were. This whole thing is like a cult, like Christianity, and I saw it immediately. And so the problem is, I can't really say I'm right wing because I believe in LGBT rights. Right. I marched in the Gay Pride Parade when they got their right to marry. It's one of the most fun parades ever to march in or watch. I believe in a lot of things. I believe in the right for abortion. I believe we need more abortions actually in America.
Really? Wow.
I mean, you would say I'm right wing, but then if I say, well, I think we need, but you would think I'm left wing. Yeah, you would think I'm on board with left wing. But if I say, hey, I think Trump is right, we need to secure our borders, all of a sudden I'm a Nazi or I'm some sort of thing here, right? So so I don't really know what I identify with. I guess I would have to say I'm more libertarian than anything.
Yeah, that's how I identify as well.
But the problem is that, except for Tulsi Gabbard right now, I think Tulsi Gabbard would be the only one that has a chance to beat Trump right now. Except for Tulsi Gabbard, I would not vote for any of those Democrats.
Yeah. It's oh my God, I don't know even know where to begin. I have so much to say. So it's weird because everything you described about yourself, it's sort of classically liberal, right? Mm-hmm. So I very clearly, definitely, I used to be a conservative. I used to be a red state, Fox News, Bush voting guy. Mm-hmm. And I came out of that basically when I came out of Christianity. And all of a sudden I started feeling like, oh, yeah, okay, there's nothing wrong with homosexuality. Gay marriage, yeah, that's cool. Do that. Yeah, whatever. Let people be, And so my views became way more, quote unquote, liberal. And I felt comfortable in that space because I feel like there was always a tension for me being a red state Republican guy because I'm brown, right? So if you stick me in the middle of frickin' Alabama or Georgia, I feel like I'll fear for my life. Like, just skinheads and KKK, and I'm like, I don't belong there.
Right.
So why am I voting? Why would I be voting alongside the Southern redneck, racist, Bible Belt and all that kind of stuff, right? Because I'm like, that's not me. Like, that's not the color of my skin. That's not my, So it just never added up. It just didn't make sense for me to be red. So for me to be blue, for me to be a liberal Democrat, where I'm all for minority rights, I'm all for gay rights, I'm all for arts and creativity and, the liberal mindset, like that actually began to really make sense for me. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because being a conservative kind of doesn't really make sense for me. I don't fit demographically, like I'm saying, in red state America.
Mm-hmm.
So,
unless you're Dinesh D'Souza.
But anyway, I know who he is. I read one of his books. I own one of his books, but that was back when I was a red state guy. I bought his book.
Right.
So Obama, I was so excited, and just like you just said, I'm right with you, like every step of the way, everything you just said. And I finally felt like, all right, I'm living in New York, and I actually get to join hands with my liberal Democrat brothers and sisters. Like, we're finally on the same team. This feels great. I'm kind of like, cool. Like, I feel like I'm finding myself in my identity. Like, I'm a New Yorker. I'm a Democrat. I'm liberal. This is awesome. You know, it's great. And then, I don't know, like somewhere, I guess toward the end of the Obama administration, and then when the 2016 election came around, I don't know. I'm sure this stuff has been building up before then, but it didn't really hit me until around the 2016 time, and really not even until after the 2016 election. But I just feel like everything you described about the left cult now is, here's the problem. It's like you and I didn't change. You and I, at our core, I feel like are still left-leaning liberal Democrat types. You know?
If you have to.
We want less war, or basically we want no war. We want peace.
We want freedom of speech, and that used to be why I was a liberal. But now, freedom of speech is on the conservative side.
Right. I mean, we used to
what the hell happened?
We used to be judged on the right side, you know, like censorship of rap lyrics and get violence out of video games and make women wear more clothes and, you know, get rid of all this sex in society. That used to be the right-wing conservative Christian side,
right?
Which we were a part of. But, you know, I don't know about you. I don't want to speak for you, but for me, I felt a little at odds with some of that stuff. And then I came out of that and I was like, oh, wow, this is fucking awesome. I can say fucking awesome. Like, I can say shit and cuss and do whatever. I can have sex, you know. Now I could do all the things that liberals, you know, the rest of liberal society can do. And I'm like, this is awesome. But now we stayed liberal, but the left and the Democratic Party has been overtaken by this whole extreme leftist social justice movement.
Right.
And I don't even want to say social justice is part of it, but also this whole thing about intersectionality. But I finally looked it up the other day, and I'm actually going to bring it up right now and read the definition.
It's a
buzzword. So this is the definition of intersectionality: the interconnected nature of social categorizations such as race, class, and gender, as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. You know?
I don't even know what that means.
So essentially what that means, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but the way it sounds to me is, it's like a Venn diagram of, you know, race, sexual orientation, disability, physical disability, you know, nationality, your gender identity, and how these Venn diagrams, like these circles, how they overlap. It's almost like you're increasing your score of victimhood, right? So if you're a woman, you automatically get some points. If you're a person of color, you get some points. If you're gay, you get some points. If you're transgender, you probably get the most points. And on this goes, so that, you know, if you're all of those things, you're the most victimized by white male patriarchy or whatever.
Right.
So therefore, because of your victim status, you get to say and do whatever you want. Meanwhile, on the other, if you're not scoring well on this intersectionality Venn diagram, so basically the worst case being if you are a white straight male, you no longer get to participate in society. Like you have to shut up. You're not allowed to say anything anymore. You are a rapist. You are a colonist. You are an oppressor. All of that. So that's the other side of intersectionality. And everything I just described, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong about interpreting what I just read about that being intersectionality, that seems to be what it is. And it's really strange for me because I've said it all along in previous podcasts about, like, when I left the faith, how much racism I had to deal with. And the fact that I've said it numerous times, it's frustrating dating as a brown guy in a society, in a church, in a world where, you know, white men are at the top of the food chain. Like, every girl of every race and color, whatever, and including white women, they all want to be with a white guy. So when they picture, their knight in shining armor, from the time they're little kids, like they're picturing a white guy. Maybe some Asians who grew up in Asia, like they're picturing another Asian guy or whatever. But
Right. Japan.
Yeah. I mean, nobody's really picturing this like quirky, weird, brown, random guy to be the guy for them. So, I mean, they're obviously, I'm speaking in generalities because there are exceptions. There are people specifically who have fetishes for black men or Indian men or whatever.
Right.
There's
Yeah,
always
there is.
exceptions
There
to
is.
the rule. But by and large, and OkCupid did that study, where it kind of ranked different ethnicities, like who are the most desirable people, right? So I believe white men were by far at the top for men. I think Asian males, and I'm not sure if Indians, I think Indians were kind of included in Asian males. We were toward the bottom. Right. And on the women's side, white women and Asian women were at the top, and black women were at the bottom. So this is not anybody's opinion. This is not my opinion. This is just the data. This is literally what people go for. And it doesn't matter what women say what men say. This is what they actually go for, right?
Right.
So that's kind of true. And I'm like, okay, that doesn't favor me, not being a white male. I feel like the only thing I really had going for me is that I'm tall. Because
well, I was going to bring that up. Is that
women won't date
if you're
short
tall?
guys.
Now it's not about race. It's just about a physical feature that you can't control. Again.
Right. So being tall was an advantage. But anyway, back to the point. The point is, if there's anybody who would like to get on the soapbox and jump on the opportunity to bring white men down, right, that would be me, right? Because I would stand to gain, right? So if all of a sudden white men are being demonized, I am not a white man. Therefore, that by default escalates my value, right? So I should be on board, right? I should be on board with the social justice movement and the demonization of white men because it benefits me, right? But I'm not on board with it. And here's a few reasons why. One is I don't believe in demonizing any group.
Right.
Because it's inherently racist or sexist or whatever you want to call it. It's just the other direction.
Right.
So I personally, I don't believe in racism. It's not that I don't believe in it. It exists. Obviously, racism exists. I believe it's wrong to be racist.
Right.
And I don't consider myself a racist. And even though I'm a man, I'm not a rapist. I'm not like,
Are you toxic?
Yeah, like the toxic masculinity, all that stuff. Like I'm like, look, I'm just a dude. I respect people. I respect gay people. I respect trans people. I respect women. I respect children. I respect white people. I respect brown people, black people, whatever. So that's just kind of how I roll. But I don't like playing these games. Elevating one race because they're down here. Like, that's fine. Let's work for black rights and minority rights. Let's work for women's rights. Let's work for trans rights. Let's do all that. I am all for that. But in the process, we don't have to bring white men down and demonize them, or white women down, or white whatever, It's
Or just men.
Or men in general. Like, we don't, there's room for all to thrive. And can't we do so in a more positive manner? Like, let's uplift people and focus on that as opposed to focusing on bringing down other people.
Right. And I think the big problem for me is that it's not even coming from a pure kind of area. It's coming from an agenda, social engineering type of thinking. So there's like something rings false every time I hear this type of stuff. And the good news is there are great leftists like the Jimmy Dore Show. I totally recommend the Jimmy Dore Show. It's that's somebody you can speak with who has a level head. There's also the guy, Tim Pool. He's also really good. People like Glenn Greenwald from The Guardian. But these people or Mike Taibbi from Rolling Stone. But these people are demonized. They're not put on, MSNBC or CNN because they will contradict the narrative that the agenda narrative that they're trying to put across.
Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing where people like you and me and Jimmy Dore and all these people, like, we're still liberal, but we're immediately demonized as being quote unquote conservatives or Republicans or Trump voters or
I
Trump
am a Trump
voters
supporter now, though.
or yeah, we'll get to that in a little bit. But or Nazis or whatever. And this is the problem with the extreme left in this whole movement is I will say this very, very plainly. I'm pretty sure Trump will win the next election. And it's the extreme left that's handing the election to Trump.
Right.
And I don't understand why all of my friends who are so angry, militant liberals who hate Trump and who are going off the deep end on the left, I don't see how they can't rationally. I mean, I guess it's all very emotional for them, so they're not thinking rationally, but they're handing the election to Trump, the 2020 election. Because when you start demonizing moderate liberal Democrats, which is pretty much like centrist, like the American population.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, when we're demonized, when I'm a brown guy demonized as being a Nazi, as being a woman hater, as being, all these things, okay, you're basically saying my options are believe exactly how you do, or I'm with the other side. In fact, one of the women in the squad, AOC's squad,
right.
I'll actually try to find that quote and I'll insert it into the podcast here when I find it.
For whatever lived experience and identity that you represent, if you are not prepared to come to that table and to represent that voice, don't come. Because we don't need any more brown faces that don't want to be a brown voice. We don't need black faces that don't want to be a black voice. We don't need Muslims that don't want to be a Muslim voice. We don't need queers that don't want to be a queer voice. And if you're worried about being marginalized and stereotyped, please don't even show up.
She's like, if you are not with us in our agenda for, the brown people on the border and all the people of color and all these, like exactly their agenda, you are against us and you are for Trump and you are blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, this is the problem. This is why you're handing the election to Trump.
Right.
You don't demonize reasonable people and call them extreme Nazis. You don't do that.
Right.
You're just
but that's the game.
Your own extreme.
That's the game plan, though. That seems to be that's the playbook right now, and that's the crazy thing. Jimmy Dore says something about people on the left who are just there really is a Trump derangement syndrome, and he says to them, "Don't let Trump hijack your cognitive thinking skills." Because what his theory is that Trump somehow activates something in the reptilian brain of the leftists that they just go crazy and self-destructive, really.
That's a good way of putting it. I think that's exactly what's going on, actually, because Trump eggs on the left.
Oh, he loves it.
and they fall right into that trap.
Yeah, whether he knows what he's doing or he doesn't know what he's doing it. He's really making them. He made the Democrats all come together with the squad. So now the squad is the face of the Democrat Party right now going into 2020.
It's a brilliant chess move on his part. I don't know. I watched the second Democratic debate. Did you watch any of those?
I can't. I literally can't.
All right. Well, I'm going to send you a cartoon video that summed it up pretty well. I recently discovered this YouTube channel where they make cartoons, and they totally summed it up.
Okay.
But okay, let me just mention this one thing. So they at one point the moderator asked everybody on the. I only watched the second one. I didn't watch the first one with Tulsi Gabbard. She was on the first one.
Okay.
So in the second one that I'm watching, they asked a question like, "Please raise your hand if you believe that all illegal immigrants, all illegal aliens should be entitled to health care or like health coverage or whatever you want." And every one of them raised their hand.
Mm-hmm. Including Tulsi Gabbard?
No. She was on they split up the debate into two sessions.
Yeah, no,
she was
I
on
remember
the first
this.
one.
Okay.
Yeah, so I didn't see the one that she was on.
Yeah,
but
I saw that
in
clip.
in the second one that I watched, Every one of them, I think, raised their hand.
Right.
And when I see that, I'm like, oh my God. Like, again, they're handing the election to Trump. Like, so we don't even have health care for all American citizens right now.
Right.
And you want American tax-paying dollars to go toward providing health care for people who just smuggle themselves across the border illegally.
Mm-hmm.
And every one of these Democratic candidates has their hand up. Yes, I'm for that.
You know something?
I'm like, oh my God.
It's. I'm going to make a prediction.
It's going to be a blowout.
Well, no, not just that. We don't know that for sure, but I have a feeling that if Trump does win, he's going to get a big chunk of the black vote.
Okay.
That's going to be very surprising. I don't know how much. It could be 20%. It could be 25%. I think he'd go as high as 35 to 40% of the black vote.
Why? What's your thinking behind that theory?
Because I'm seeing a lot of blacks who are sick of this. That are sick of the toxic masculinity BS that they're saying.
Wait. So are you speaking about black people in general in America, or just black men?
In general, black people in general as well, because they see something like this where they see their communities they're not going to help them, but they're going to help people who just got here yesterday to get free health care.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? That, the people are watching this and they're seeing that. And they're seeing how hard they fight for people who are not really Americans.
Yeah.
At this point.
And they're feeling offended by that, right?
They are feeling very offended. They're feeling very offended because they've never seen them fight this hard for them.
Right.
So
yeah,
I have a feeling, and also when I look at, I left Facebook, I left Twitter, but when I go on Instagram and I see, even when I go to like a Trump supporters meetup in New York, there's like half of them are black, gay. It's like the people who you think wouldn't be on Trump train are.
Right.
And I'm very surprised by that.
Yeah, and I got to say at this moment, like, you sent me that walk away video, the event, the open forum town hall that the gay community, the LGBT community had in New York.
The guy's name is Brandon Strucka. I can't spell it, but if you look Brandon Strucka, #walkaway, and just if you Google on YouTube, #walkaway, you'll just see videos of all these people who are leaving the Democratic Party. And it doesn't mean that they go to the Republican Party. They're just leaving, and they may vote independent, or they may just not vote, but they're just leaving because of what we've been talking about. And he had a town hall he wanted to have it at the LGBT Center, which I've been to many times, but they wouldn't let him have it
they
there
wouldn't
because
let him, right.
It really should be called the LGBT Center for Democrats only.
Yeah.
So
not even for Democrats only, for like radical leftist Democrats.
Exactly. Exactly. And so that's the crazy part of it. So he had it anyway, and it was a really very interesting discussion that they had. And I recommend anybody to Google that, the LGBT town hall walk away.
I'm so glad you sent me that video, because when I watched it, I just loved it, because I feel like I start questioning myself, the way I've been attacked, or the way I'm not even attacked yet, but it's only because I keep quiet about all this stuff.
Right.
But I feel like if I were to actually be vocal on Facebook about things, like, I would be attacked. But for me to watch that video and see black gay men and other gay men, and even a transsexual Blair White, I think her name's Blair White, right?
I don't remember.
When I was able to see them on the panel, and they're speaking out about how they're at odds with the LGBTQ other letters community, I was like, wow. I feel like I can just stop saying anything, because at least I'm a brown person. If I was a white man, I couldn't say anything, but at least I can say something as a brown minority. Mm-hmm. But even with that video, I just feel like, all right, how are you going to label another gay person homophobic? You can't, right? But that's why I'm kind of
like, they did.
I'm not sure.
They did. They tried to stop his thing by saying he's
just
anti-gay.
Like they call Ben Shapiro a Jew, they call him a Nazi.
A Nazi,
it's the same thing. So
that was Google. that was Google, who is such a powerful company in the world, and they're basically trying to censor what you see and make you think a certain way with their search results. And that's what they were talking about. This was an internal email that's saying, should we get rid of these Nazis, which is, and basically two of them are very devout Jewish people. Should we get rid of them? This was not meant to be seen by the public. This was a whistleblower that sent it that let it out into the world. And then just recently, somebody came out. It was a top engineer at Google. I don't know if you saw this. He came out as a whistleblower, but not in disguise. He actually said who he was, where he worked. He works here in New York for Google, and how he thought that they were absolutely trying to engineer the next election with what people were seeing. And of course, they just put him on leave.
Yeah.
And they're, pretty much ready to fire him, I would imagine. But
Yeah,
this
I'm
is
surprised-
like Google.
I'm surprised it wouldn't have been fired already.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So, that's something that's kind of scary, really.
Yeah.
You
But
have
I
these
mean,
companies-
it gave me, I know they're doing all that, but the thing that gave me some peace of mind is that to watch that walk away video with the LGBT community coming together and speaking about walking away from this,
Yes.
extremist left agenda. I was like, wow, this is, it kind of restored my hope in liberalism again, or like, you know what I mean? Like, it just gave me a little bit of hope. Not even liberalism. It's not even the right word, because some of them are defining themselves as conservative, which kind of blows my mind to hear a gay conservative Republican.
But they weren't always. The main guy was
right.
a hardcore
I know.
Democrat who hated Trump. He said he hated Trump.
Yeah.
And he said, how can anybody support this guy after he mocks this disabled reporter? And then somebody who was brave enough, because nobody would say anything, somebody was brave enough to send him a video of all the times that Trump had said that years before, and he saw that this was actually a lie, that they were trying to manipulate what he was thinking, and they started to question things. And as soon as he started to question things, he got attacked. If he says, why do we use the word queer in this group that he was a part of, he got attacked because of that, because he says, I don't want to be called queer. Queer was always
right. I remember
a pejorative term throughout the years here in New York, and so he got attacked just for asking questions and saying, basically, he was anti this, that, he was a white guy. It's the go-to. It's not an argument. They just go to, you're a racist, you're a white guy, you don't know.
That's the whole intersectional, Venn diagram thing, and the identity politics, basically.
Mm-hmm. So if anybody has not seen that, I recommend seeing it. It's very interesting. Just the first 6 minutes will show you what the big problem right now with social justice warrior, Antifa type mainstream tactics are now.
Yeah, a couple of things I wanted to say. One is, I remember it was a couple years ago. It was after the election. It might have been around 2017 or so. You were the first person who told me about walk away, like hashtag walk away.
Right.
And, I heard it first from you. And I remember you and I had some conversations about it. And I was kind of like, okay, that sounds great and all, like walking away from something that has become bad, but it's only half the thing is to walk away from something. Then the next question is, well, where are you walking to?
Right.
And my problem has been, what, are you just all gonna go over and become Republicans now? Is that like the thing? Because I just feel like we live in this two-party madness, where you and I have already spoken earlier in this podcast about how we felt oppressed by the right when it comes to conservative religious oppression of our freedoms. Freedom of speech, freedom to say shit, freedom to say fuck. And now all of a sudden, I just don't feel like walk away is the answer if everybody who's a disgruntled Democrat just goes over and joins the Republican Party.
I don't think that's what's happening. But I think what's happening is people are going to third party. Some of them, yes, are going to Republican Party. I think the deeper issue is that, a lot of the the, what do you call it? The corporate, there's corporate Democrats and there's like corporate Republicans. And they're pretty much the same thing.
Right.
And especially even with the social justice warrior thing, they're pretty much the same.
What?
When it comes to war,
what?
Oh yeah. Well, like what I mean by that is that
well,
they'll
the
be the first ones.
the war machine is left and right. It's just
Left and right, but also
Oh,
like
oh.
when the whole immigration thing. George Bush was not somebody who cared about immigration too much. His brother was not, Jeb Bush. So it's they're both on that same page.
Wait, when you say they don't care about immigration, what do you mean?
Meaning they it's fine. They're not going.
They don't care about securing the border, and
no, they don't care. They don't care. They want more illegal labor here for whatever reason they want. There's conspiracy theories about it, but I'm not going to get into it. But just they're pretty much on the war on a lot of things that are really bad for the U.S. They're pretty much together, Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, and that
I'm
makes
talking about
me feel.
and these are the people that hate Trump. There are never Trump or Republicans there.
Uh-huh.
These are the ones.
Right.
Like the
Yeah,
John
I don't know,
McCains.
man.
The John McCain.
Yeah, I get really disheartened by politics, as I know a lot of people do.
Yeah.
It's just I'm
We're
not
talking a lot about
naive.
politics today.
Yeah, I know. But I feel like that it's kind of like this is where it's led us to. Like you and me.
Well, it's become a religion now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like you and I have come out of religion, and like you said earlier, it was a big deal for us the first couple of years, like finding a community of atheists, like or people who have left religion, making sure we knew the Bible and everything that we needed to know to really prove it to ourselves that like, yeah, okay, this is really not true. But we've been through that whole phase, and we came out of that. And now we're just out there living lives, right? Like we're just, finding work and looking for love and, having a good time with friends and just like traveling and just living life, doing what we can, just enjoying life. Mm-hmm. And I think I agree with you. Like I said earlier, like religion and Christianity, it's not really that big a deal in my life anymore. Like even combating against it or whatever. Like I feel like you said, I hope I'm doing a service to people who might be struggling in religion and they might need some awareness that there is a way out and that kind of thing. But beyond that, there's other things that I focus on that are more like creative endeavors, right? Things that satisfy me much greater. Yes, we're talking about politics a lot now, but I feel like that's way more relevant to my struggle these days.
Right. Like
when I can't, I'll give you this example. So I know you're off all the social media and everything, but.
Well, I'm still on Instagram. That's the only one I'm on.
Okay. Well, speaking of Instagram, where is this? I found something on Pinterest. It was just an inspirational text and I just grabbed it and then I posted it as an Instagram story, right? Yesterday. Mm-hmm. And the text reads, "Worry about your character and not your reputation. Because your character is who you are, and your reputation is only what people think of you."
Right.
Okay? So that's that's a good message, right? That's good to put that out there for myself and for others. And I'm like, okay, cool. I'll just put a little inspiring thought, that I just came across. I put that.
Right.
Guess what happens?
Don't tell me.
It immediately gets flagged.
What?
And here's the exact text from Instagram. "Your post has been deleted. We removed your post because it doesn't follow our community guidelines on regulated goods. If you violate our guidelines again, your account may be restricted or disabled." What? And then below it says community guidelines. "Content that promotes the use or sale of regulated goods isn't allowed on Instagram. According to our community guidelines, this includes offers to buy or sell illegal or prescription drugs, even if it's legal in your region, promoting the use of illegal drugs, peer-to-peer sales of firearms, explosives, or ammunition, and offers to buy and sell endangered animals and their parts." How ridiculous!
What does that have to do? What
Nothing.
Does that have to do with your post?
Nothing. But this is the thing. there was a link at the bottom. It says, think we made a mistake? Let us know. Okay, so of course I click on that link. I say, yes, I think this is a mistake. I'm letting you know. So the point is, obviously that was incorrectly flagged because there was nothing inappropriate about what I posted.
Is that somebody flagged it, or they?
I think it must have been their algorithm because it happened pretty quickly right after I posted the thing. But here's my point: is if you reread what I just said, if you violate our guidelines again, your account may be restricted or disabled. Now, I don't know how they're keeping track of these strikes against my account on Instagram. I've never heard of this kind of thing happening because I know this happens all the time on YouTube. But the point is like, for all I know, by the way, today they re-allowed my post to exist. So they've kind of unflagged it. So that inspiring text, it actually went live. So hopefully they've undone the strike against my name. But other than the fact that the graphic was live, they didn't send me any apology. They didn't send me any letter saying, oh, we're sorry, we incorrectly flagged you. Don't worry, your account is in good standing, blah, blah, blah. They didn't send me anything like that. So for all I know, even though I was incorrectly flagged, I might have a strike against my Instagram account, right? So what happens the next time when I actually say something that's borderline offensive, right? So if I do a graphic that's like #walkaway, and I say, I don't know about the Democratic Party, they seem to be going extreme left, but I think we should all think for ourselves and come to our own conclusions. Let's say I write up a post like that. And let's say an extreme leftist flags it because they find that offensive, or I'm spouting hate speech, right? Mm-hmm. Who's to say? Like, now I got 2 strikes on my account. They might take my account down and I'm banned and I'm gone. It's over. So this is why I'm like, I don't want to live like this, you know? Like, I don't want to post anything on a platform where
that's the point.
You know, and
the point is that
like over the span of a couple years, like I have hundreds and hundreds of posts, like my art and designs and thoughts and personal photos and pets and dogs, like everything I've posted for the past several years. In an instant, it can just be gone. Right. And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to post anymore in that kind of environment where I'm like, you know. Well, that's so the point. I feel like I'm at my wit's end. I mean,
they want you to shut up. They don't want you to post anything that would be, you know, against the religion of the times now, the social justice warrior religion. That's the new church, and you know, they're the ones that are going to make you have penance or send you to the stake on social media. That means figuratively speaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's the point, is so you don't post anything more.
I know. I mean, part of me, I just feel like I've been self-censoring myself for months now. Like, I don't want to post anything. I don't want to post anything even remotely offensive. And even when I post something good and positive like that, I still get flagged.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's why I feel like I think I'm done. I think I'm done with kind of social media. I'm actually surprised that Confusianity hasn't gotten any strikes against it, because I walk the fine line there with.
If you have somebody who's ex-Muslim and you start saying something about Muslims, then you will be. But you can say anything against Christianity; they don't care.
Right. And I would like to. I have loosely said some things about Islam, but I would like to say more. But then again, it's like, I think it's better for me to self-censor myself. Mm-hmm. Don't say anything about Islam, or I'll get taken down like tomorrow.
Right.
But that's why I'm kind of like, look, you know, I'm old, I'm getting older, like life is short. Like, why do I want to waste my time seeking truth and publishing art and thoughts that are a little bit edgy, but they're honest, you know, and always under this fear that I'm going to be shut down any second. Like, I'd rather find some other platform. So I think that's why I'm going to start going to decentralized crypto platforms where you actually have freedom of speech. Remember that thing? Freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm. It's becoming harder to remember. I said, you know, I used to be a liberal because because of freedom of speech, but it's the liberals who are against freedom of speech at this point. They're the ones that are trying to get conservatives or anybody who says anything against, like, if you say, I mean, there are channels
that were criticizing The Last Jedi because of what they did to Luke Skywalker and, all that. And they were just saying, so there were people actively trying to get these channels off of YouTube because they were calling them misogynist, et cetera, stuff, because you're complaining about it or you're criticizing.
Because you're not happy about a movie.
Exactly.
Right.
And these are the people who are on Twitter, and these are people, they don't go to see Star Wars movies. They don't, literally,
right.
I haven't watched
the true
this video.
Star Wars fans for the last 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, whatever it is.
Yeah, this is YouTube, a video I haven't watched here. It says, the title of
We're the ones being silenced about making videos about Star Wars movies, and it's the true fans for the last 40 years of the franchise.
Exactly.
It's just ridiculous.
There's a YouTube video here. I haven't watched it, but the title is, and this is from, I think, a Marvel writer, admits that she wants to race and gender swap every superhero she can. So that's what's coming, because they see something successful, and then all of a sudden they have to say, okay, let's make sure it's socially justice warrior approved.
I mean, go woke, go broke. That's the expression.
Well, I can't I'm not going to see that next James Bond at all. I don't know how it's going to do. I'm definitely, unless I hear really great reviews from these people, I'm not going to see the next Star Wars. And that, how weird is that I'm not going to go see the next Star Wars? I'm planning on not seeing the next Star Wars. Who would ever think that I would say something like that? Mm-hmm. But that's the case with me anyway.
Well,
so I don't know how many other people feel
after Jar Jar Binks, though.
He's embarrassing.
But that would not. Jar Jar Binks did not make me. Jar Jar Binks was bad, but it didn't offend me. Like, it didn't say, "Hey." It wasn't like. He was doing.
You're a stupid man.
George Lucas
walk
was
around in a diaper and shut up, and listen to the women in charge, like
right,
that. And we're gonna kill off the hero of all of the Star Wars movies,
make him a coward.
Yeah, as he remotely holograph projects himself into a scene. Right. We're not going to go off about Star Wars right now, but I just can't get over the fact that he basically just he basically phoned it in and he died. He phoned it in and he died.
Uh-huh.
Because he phoned it in. Like, how lame can you kill the hero of the entire Star Wars saga?
He got killed by Skyping.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He just phoned it in. Oh my god.
I don't know, but at least Solo didn't make any money.
Right.
So we'll see how the next movie does.
Yeah, I am not sure if I'm going to go watch it or not, but before we go off on a Star Wars tangent, I just want to say this, that I think the thing that's so frustrating to me is that it's almost like this movement, or the people controlling the movement, kind of behind the scenes, it's almost like the goal is to create as much enmity as possible between men and women. Because a lot of us regular straight guys, whether we're white or not or whatever, like, we don't have a problem with women. We don't have a problem with like strong female characters, Like, we have no problem with Wonder Woman being the hero she is. We have no problem with Princess Leia being the badass she is, or Elle in Stranger Things. Like, we love strong female characters. We have no problem with women being the hero,
as long as they're written
in all of these different stories. Like, I can go on. And I'll even include this when it comes to comedy. You know how there's like a lot of people who say like, well, women aren't funny. Only men are funny and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like, all right. First of all, there's a lot more male comedians on the market. So, of course, quantitatively speaking, you're going to have a lot more funny guys than funny women. But there's a lot of funny women out there. Like, there's a lot of scenes and stand-up that I love that women do, So, the other day I saw an old sketch from Conan O'Brien show. And it was, I don't know if you ever remember these, but Amy Poehler, when she was younger, she played Andy Richter's younger sister. Do you remember that skit they did?
No, I never saw it.
Okay, so maybe I'll include a link in the show notes. But I saw it just randomly the other day. It was like she's got like this braces and like a retainer and all this stuff. She's like really dorky, really uncomfortable, but she's like obsessed with Conan. She has like a huge crush on Conan, and she's like Andy Richter's sister.
Conan, every time I think the fire has gone out in my heart.
Fucking hilarious though. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, there's always things like that. Like I always like to see balanced characters, female heroes, female comedians. The point for me is, as long as it's funny, that's the point. Like for comedians, or as long as for a movie, as long as the story's good, as long as there's character development, as long as the dialogue is good. Like those are the things that are important. I don't care whether it's a woman or a man or whatever. But the problem with all the entertainment now, not all of it, but like such a large percentage of the entertainment now, we're being preached to. It's like I can't watch a show without them specifically calling out, look, it's a female hero. Oh, look how the man in this scene is a complete jackass. And look how this man is. And I'm like, this is not cool.
That was the plot of Last Jedi. The plot of Last Jedi, you had one of the coolest characters from The Force Awakens. His name is Poe. His whole story arc is that he's mad at women in charge for the whole 2 hours.
Right.
And he gets slapped by Leia and then shot by Leia until he learns not to be a toxic masculine guy.
Yeah.
And that was the story arc.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, it's so bad. But again, if that's what they want to make, I just won't see it. That's it. And if they make money, great. I'll just go on. I guess
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of. It's going to be interesting to see how the next couple of years plays out, because I think some people look at this time as a revolution. Like we're moving toward a matriarchy, and white men are going to move to the back of the line and to the bottom of and like we are heading in that direction, and there's no stopping it, and we're going to become a socialist society, and it's like fuck capitalism. And there's people who are definitely working at that to make that a reality, and there's definitely people who believe that will be the case. And we'll see how things play out, but I don't know. Like I feel like this is kind of a phase where people are I feel like it's not sustainable. Like I just feel like the hatred toward men, the demonization of men and white men in particular, all of this stuff. Like I just feel like it's not sustainable. And I feel like it's going to blow out. I mean, look at the Me Too movement alone, right? At first it had all this momentum and everybody's like, yeah, Harvey Weinstein, and the evil men in power, and they're abusing their power over women. Like it started out with that, which is like, fine, this is gross evil. Call it out, arrest them, like, bring them to trial, like send them to prison. Like that's great. Like just let's have justice for people who have legitimately been victimized, right? And it started out like that, and then it just kind of mutated and grew and evolved into like all of a sudden now it's like all men are rapists, and like if Aziz Ansari has a bad date, he's a sexual offender. He's a sexual offender,
Well, he's a sexual offender because the woman had buyer's remorse afterwards.
I know, and it's because of that, and now there's been a backlash to the Me Too movement, and it's not just men. There's a lot of women coming out and saying, "Look, this is ridiculous."
Well, you just reminded me of something. I getting back to why I got off Facebook and why I was very more away from the left. When I was on Facebook, I used to be a member of this. I don't know if it was a polyamorous group, but it was a very like open sexuality kind of group, right? And this issue with what's the guy's name? That Indian guy who had the bad date.
Oh, Aziz Ansari.
Yeah, so this person posted about him and the date and basically saying how men are creeps and all that stuff. And all the women were, basically saying the same thing over and over. This one guy, and this is a liberal social justice warrior guy as well. He says, and he asked, I think was a legitimate question. He says, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but does the woman have any responsibility in this case? And they attacked him.
Right, of course.
Over and over again for as being not an ally, as being someone who is a toxic male. But they never answered his question.
Of course,
saying yes or no. They wouldn't say, yeah, she has the responsibility, or no, she has no responsibility. Mm-hmm. And even other guys who I would call soy boys, guys who would just get on the woman's side, but never answer the question. Now, I didn't get into it because, they know me and I don't want to, I didn't want to rock the boat. But I'm looking and I'm reading.
Self-censored, probably wisely so.
Oh, totally. I'm not in that community because they'll come after me with pitchforks the next time they see me.
Right.
So ultimately, as before I stopped reading that thread, it's like they basically answered his question. Yes, one of the women, after he said that, he says, hashtag it's all men. Like all men are evil. Basically, all men are rapists.
Yeah. Right.
Hashtag all men, right? Because he was basically questioning. And it was a legitimate question is, does that woman have any responsibility? She gave him a BJ, right? I don't know if I can curse on your thing or not, so I'll just say BJ. And he didn't force her to do it. So does she have any responsibility?
You're talking about the Aziz Ansari. You're talking about the Aziz Ansari story?
Yeah, that's the whole thread on the Facebook was about that.
Yeah.
And so that guy is just asking that simple question, does the woman have any responsibility in that? And they just kept attacking him, saying hashtag all men, that you're not an ally. This is the reason that men suck. But my takeaway was they did answer his question. Basically, to them, it's no, she has no responsibility. It's all the men's fault.
Right.
That was really, they didn't say it, but pretty much that's what they were saying by their answers.
Well, even if they said it out loud that way, that's exactly what I would expect.
Right. So that was one of the first wake-up calls to all of this stuff about that. Before I was all on board with, female empowerment and the goddess and all that stuff. But when I'm seeing this, I'm like, wait a minute, something's wrong.
Well,
that's
the interesting thing to me about this whole this is like third wave feminism, basically, right? Is a lot of other women are not happy about this,
right?
Exactly. So I think I've seen different polls. There was the HuffPost poll I saw. I think it was back in like 2015 or 2013. I would love to. I tried to find a more recent poll via Google and maybe this is being suppressed. I don't know, but I did not find a recent poll with data on what percentage of American women identify as feminist. But the last poll that I saw, I think it was only like around 18%. So this is why I'm saying this is not sustainable.
Right.
Because I'll give you another example. So I saw this other YouTube video. It might have been I don't know if it was a Steven Crowder video. I don't think it was. It was some other video. But it was on a college campus. And it was all of these, leftist extremist SJWs. They were chanting and raving about something. And all of a sudden, this one white woman spoke up. And she's part of the collective group, right? So she's all for... And whatever she said, this other black woman didn't like what she said. And she was basically like, she turned to this white woman. She's like, yeah, you shut the fuck up. You white woman, like, da-da-da-da-da. Like, you're not allowed to say shit and da-da-da-da-da. And this white woman sheepishly backed off because she had to check her privilege, right? She had to acknowledge the fact that, all right, you're right, I am a white woman, so I'll shut up now. And like a few minutes earlier, she was chanting and yelling against some other white man who was there, or a conservative who was there, and all of a sudden she had to shut up because she's not a person of color. You know what I'm saying? So when I say earlier, like, it's just not sustainable, is that the left is turning on itself. They've already been doing that. They're eating each other alive. They're swallowing each other whole. So,
well, yeah, if you don't
not
agree
sustainable. It's not a movement of love. It's not an inspiring movement. And when you see women and gays and transsexuals and blacks, like you're saying, your theory, a lot of blacks are going to vote for Trump next election.
I think so. I mean,
when you
see a
movement, when you see a movement of these kind of population groups, of women, of minorities, people of color, blacks, moving away from the left-wing Democratic movement, that's when you know this is not sustainable. You know, this is not a movement of love. I feel like if something is truly a movement of love, it will grow, and more people will want to come into it. You know,
Right.
like
Well, it's a movement of
like
control.
your example when you went to the Gay Pride Parade a few years ago and you loved it. You know, because it was kind of a celebration of freedom, right, and love, and you got on board. You were into that, and it's a great thing. That's the kind of thing that will draw more people in. But I feel like this whole leftist extremist movement, it's not a movement of love, which is why I feel like it is not sustainable. Like they're just turning more and more people off. And as long as you don't fit in the intersectional, Venn diagram, you'll be eliminated, which is, it sounds like a right-wing cult, a religious cult.
Well, it is, and it's a movement of control is the problem. They want to control what you say, what you think, and if you don't think right, then we need to send you to re-education camps because there's something wrong with you. I mean, that's why people are going away from it. That's not a sustainable movement, and it is very much like a cult, and like the church. It reminds me of all the Christian playbook, the Christianity playbook.
Yeah. I think that's why I was kind of, it really bummed me out the last couple of years because I thought I escaped, that Christian, cult idea. And I was happy to be a Democrat supporting Obama. And I was really excited when Obama got elected. I think I probably even, cried.
I was very happy.
Tears of joy. And I was just so excited. Like, wow, we have a black president. This is awesome. Like, it was great.
Speak well.
Yeah. It was
He's
just
inspiring.
Like everybody, we were just, and then thing after thing after thing, like just like botched healthcare, like the whole Affordable Care Act where we end up having to pay more and you have to pay a penalty if you don't, buy into that system. And, and they didn't close Guantanamo and we did all these way more drone strikes than we ever did. And the whole Libya thing, and just like on and on and on and on. It's just like, and he didn't bring the troops home from Afghanistan or Iraq, didn't end the wars, like just all of these things. And then just like, God damn it, man. Where do I go from here? And then you're faced with Hillary versus Trump, and you're like, oh God.
And then if you remember the debates, Hillary was the one that was hawkish pro-war, and Trump wasn't.
Right. Yeah, it's quite likely if Hillary was president now, we'd be at war with Russia or North Korea.
Definitely in Syria. We would totally have troops in Syria.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go in about a minute. What time is it? 4:59? Jeez.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so actually, I think the only one that can beat Trump right now is Trump. And if he continues to surround himself with, and I'm not talking about stupid tweets or anything, people like that. I'm talking about like if he actually gets us into a useless war. I think that's really the only thing that he can really like, or he gives amnesty.
Yeah.
If he does one of those two things, he beats himself.
It's amazing how many wars we get into when the American people, we don't want war. We don't want more wars, and we just keep getting into more wars.
Right. And then the only time the mainstream media like CNN and MSNBC praises him is when he launched missiles at Syria. The only time.
I know.
So it's so crazy. But anyway, so yeah, that was a lot to talk about there.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts? Because I got to go see Jeff Goldblum at the IFC Center.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have any further questions. If you have any concluding thoughts of your own to add about religion, Christianity, society, culture, everything.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a phase, and I think this will just blow over. I think after 2020, I think a lot of this has come from just again total rage and Trump derangement syndrome. I think people are just so mad at Trump that they just I think exposed themselves for who they were. And I think after 2020, it's most likely going to be Trump winning again. And I think all of this stuff may die down. But I think in Hollywood, they're still trying to pass this agenda, and I don't see
but
that as being sustainable.
The whole go woke, go broke thing.
I don't think
if they're not going to be making money making these films, they're going to have to stop doing that.
Right. I think that's going to be the thing, is they're going to see that even Marvel, again, like I said, only Trump could defeat Trump. Only Marvel can make themselves go down the drain. And that seems to be the path that they're going. Even Star Wars. Star Wars there should be no way that people should not have liked that last Star Wars. You had Luke Skywalker coming back. How could you not have a movie that gets people happy? And they didn't.
Well, I'll tell you how. You have him do a Skype call into a battle scene, and then he dies. That's how.
So I think that's going to take a little longer for them to wake up. That you can't just put agendas in there. But they're going to do their best. They're, they didn't fire Kathleen Kennedy, which they should have, and now they're thinking that her replacement is going to be somebody she was mentoring. So it's just going to be more of the same.
More of the same. Yeah.
That we need to have more women. We have to see a quota of women in Star Wars films and behind the scenes and all that stuff. And it's just fine, but it's not about the story. That's not their priority. Their priority is,
right.
I think I sent you this video of Kathleen Kennedy, and they're asking her about this new Star Wars trilogy that supposedly the creator, the people behind Game of Thrones was going to make a trilogy. And she said, and they asked her, like, what's it going to be? She said, I don't know. And they said, are they going to be women? Oh yeah, I'm going to make sure there's women behind. I'm going to make sure that she knows. But she doesn't know anything else about the Star Wars. So that's her main focus. Her main priority is not a good Star Wars film. It's making sure an agenda is on the way. But I want to leave it on a positive note. People won't see it, and and so maybe they will go back to normal. Hopefully, if not, then that the good news is it creates an opportunity for anybody who wants to make movies that are actually good.
I wish we had a little more time. I wanted to say that I realized this the other day. The 2010s, this decade, this is the first decade I've been alive for. Or even not alive for, but like the first decade where I feel like this is just a lame decade. Like the 2000s was pretty great. In a lot of ways.
I will agree with you.
The internet.
I will agree with you. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that.
The 90s was great. The 80s was awesome, and the 2010s. It's like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah,
but what I was going to say is that I think the good news is if Hollywood continues this way, I think it creates an opportunity for the next George Lucas to come along and give the people what they really want.
Yeah,
good entertainment and no agenda.
Like a populist round of entertainment, like a new generation of. I would like to be part of that, movement.
Yeah, let's do it.
And that's my intention: is to go on alternative media platforms and post the content that that people want to see. Right,
it's there. The opportunity is there.
Yeah,
I mean, we've had this discussion. We know the opportunity is there. It's just do it. So let's do it.
All right.
Okay, I gotta go. You gotta go.
And on an optimistic note. All right. And there you have it. Episode 10, Season 1, complete. Hope you enjoyed this episode, as well as this entire first season of the Confusianity Podcast. I will be on hiatus for the next several weeks as I line up the next batch of interviews, as well as upgrade my audio equipment and get a few other things in order before commencing Season 2. If you're hungry for more episodes, well, I recommend going back and listening to the previous 9, especially if you haven't heard all of them yet. There's a range of topics discussed, not necessarily all just about Christianity. During the podcast hiatus, I will be continuing to post blasphemous content on Instagram at instagram.com/Confusianity and YouTube at youtube.com/Confusianity. Speaking of YouTube, we finally made it over 1,000 subscribers. Special thanks to all of you who've subscribed. Really appreciate it. If you see something on the channel that's funny, thought-provoking, whatever, click like and share with friends. And of course, if you haven't yet subscribed, please go hit that big red subscribe button and let's keep the momentum going. Oh, and by the way, if you've been listening on Apple Podcasts, you can actually leave a rating and a review. We've got a couple up there now, and it would be awesome to have even more. So please leave a positive rating and review. It's free and easy and a great way to show your support for this podcast. Okay, now with all that housekeeping out of the way, I wanted to say a few words as I wrap up this inaugural season of the Confusianity Podcast. As with most things in my life, it's been a learning experience. Figuring out podcast publishing with Anchor, refining audio recording and editing skills, getting more comfortable with interviewing people, and so on and so forth. I've also just really enjoyed the conversational podcast format, always getting to delve deeper into subject areas in such ways that you can't really do with regular, short attention span social media platforms. I like this podcast thing, and I hope you'll join me in this endeavor as we enter into season 2. And maybe me doing this podcast has actually proven to be inspiring enough for you to create your own podcast. If you do start or already have a podcast where you discuss not only religion, but culture, politics, lifestyle, happiness, mindfulness, meaning, and purpose, get in touch. Share your podcast with me. I'd be glad to check it out. And who knows, maybe we can be guests on each other's podcasts. I do have a queue of people I'll be interviewing for season 2, but if you're interested in being a guest on the Confusianity Podcast, feel free to reach out and let's see what happens. A final thought to wrap up this episode and season 1. I am on a journey in life, not only of self-discovery, realizing who I am, what my values are, what I want out of life, etc., but also of truth-seeking in general, of understanding the world and my place in it. As I see it, life is largely about evolution. It's about being malleable, being willing to grow and open to change for the better. It's about loving yourself for who you are today, flaws and all, and loving your past self, despite probably being wrong about a great many things. It's about being humble enough today to know that your future self will probably look back and deem your current self to be foolish or ignorant in some way. But you know what? It's okay. As long as you're moving forward in life, honestly, with love and respect for yourself and others, what more can one do? I may not agree with you or you may not agree with me about a great many things, but that's okay. We're each entitled to our own views, based on our own unique life experiences that have led each of us to where we are today. To deny someone's views or someone's life experience is to essentially deny their existence, which I find to be atrocious. There is so much vicious animosity today, people on the left demonizing people on the right, and vice versa. Atheists hating religious people for their beliefs, and religious extremists threatening the lives of non-religious folks or people of other religions. Where does it end? Seemingly, it never does, and never will. But I, for one, seek to understand those who are different than me. It doesn't mean that I'll necessarily agree with their views or approve of their behavior. In fact, I will call bullshit when I see people committing atrocities and irrationally defending those vile behaviors. Like I said earlier, my intention is to always be honest with myself and honest in how I interact with others. That is the best I, or any of us, can do. Don't live a lie. Put your theories to the test. Play devil's advocate. Try to see things from someone else's point of view, even if you don't like their point of view. This is my encouragement to you. Ask the tough questions. Go deeper. Become more comfortable with not knowing everything and being humble about all that we don't know. Be empathetic. Learn from your mistakes and the mistakes of others. Continue to refine your worldview. In a highly toxic and inflammatory world, find ways to truly love yourself and love others. Go beyond the superficial and seek to forge genuine connections with other humans. Oh yeah, and don't forget to have some fun. This is the stuff of life. This is the journey. Get on with it. Take care, my friends. Until next time.